I'm glad that folks are here. We'll get started. I'm going to stop everyone else's videos. It's just going to be Rachel and Rachel's going to go through an amazing presentation. She's going to walk us through some amazing anecdotes and great teaching moments. I'll tell you a little bit about Luvira. We are a small boutique consulting firm. We work with startups and small and medium-sized businesses. We are on the system, structure, and people side. So whether you are first starting out and trying to figure out whether or not you need to bring on a co-founder, whether or not you need to bring on a CTO, happy to work with you on the people strategy, happy to work with you on the systems and structure strategy once you start growing and once you start getting some more funding. So that's us. Okay, off to Rachel.
Cool. Moving on down to the next slide here. It goes perfect. Thank you. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Rachel. I'm super excited to be here, and thank you for everyone to be here as well, making time out of your day. I know it's tough to do that in today's day and age, so really appreciate it and so grateful. But really, I'm here to talk about how to use AI as a strategic advantage. And as I get into this deck, I just want to note I have really tailored this deck specifically for you guys. That's why I was asking like where you guys are at within your rounds, bootstrap, early stage founders who are building something from scratch, figuring out how to move fast without making those expensive mistakes, right? So let's get into it. So just a little bit about me before we really get into it, actually. I'm a marketing strategist and consultant. I've been in the industry for 10 years. What I do really at the end of the day is connect your overarching business goals with your marketing plan. So making sure that everything and everyone is aligned so your company can actually scale. I've worked with global brands like Hulu, JP Morgan, Sony, but I've also worked with SMBs and startups. So I'm pretty agnostic when it comes to size and revenue. And what it comes down to, as I've noted, is it's really just connecting your goals with that marketing plan, helping you put together that marketing plan if need be as well. What we're going to cover today is how AI is a tool you can use to think, prepare, and make smarter decisions. You can use it for high stakes conversation prep, pitches, investor meetings, legal discussions, partner conversations, anything along those lines, anything just really important when it comes to conversation or any important conversation or presentation that you might have. You can use AI to help get you there. You can pressure test your strategies as well, not actually coming up with your strategy, big difference there, but pressure testing what you already have. We'll talk about when to bring in the experts and what they're going to help you achieve. AI is great, as we all know, but it does have its shortfalls, and waiting too long to put together a marketing strategy could actually really lead to quite costly and avoidable mistakes at the end of the day. And so at the end, I want to make sure that you guys leave with a very practical framework that you can leave here and immediately really start to move faster and apply some of these prompts and use AI in the most efficient way possible. So AI as a strategic partner. Early stage founders really now have the access to the same caliber of strategic thinking that previously required large full-scale teams. We're living in a world where AI is just the great equalizer, but you do really need to know how to use it, right? So it can help you think more strategically by challenging your assumptions, exploring angles you haven't considered, or clarifying any of those strategic approaches that we spoke about. It can really help you prepare, so you're walking into these high stakes meetings armed as well. And then it can also help you really just be confident in those decisions that you're making. It can pressure test your positioning, your GTM before you really spend real money on that execution, right? So I want to dive a little bit further into like think, prepare, and decide. So moving on down here, how to use AI to help you think. Slide. Thank you. Cool. So the biggest strategic mistakes just don't come from bad execution. They come from unchallenged assumptions. I said that. I put that in there for me. But I keep saying something along those lines. So you want to use AI as your devil's advocate. But how do you do that, right? You can ask it to challenge your assumptions. Have AI argue against what you already have out there, against your strategy, against your positioning. So what are you assuming about your customer, your market, your pricing that just might not hold? When it comes to assumptions, I think it's really important that we always let data tell us what actually is accurate. You don't want to necessarily assume who your ICP is, your ideal customer profile is, or exactly kind of like what they're going to pay, right? You want to test these things before you commit. Again, real world testing is obviously always best here, but you can use AI to help get you 80% of the way there. You can also ask it to help you explore unconsidered angles. So AI has really no skin in the game, no sunk cost, no founder biases. So you can ask it to surface like risks or approaches that you or your team just really hasn't considered yet. It can also help you find like that white space that you didn't know was there. And then it can also help you clarify before committing. So sharpen your thinking, make your plan defensible before you spend runway on an approach you haven't really stress tested. And just to kind of reiterate here, real world scenarios is always going to be the best case scenario by utilizing AI to preview your tests or test your tests, I should say, in a controlled environment. And you can hedge your bets and make sure that you're really plugging those holes at the bottom of the bucket. So when people do come in your door, you're going to help keep them in your universe. I have a couple of just like examples from like Claude of what you can write in for each of those here. So how to challenge your assumptions, how to explore unconsidered angles, and how to clarify before committing. So just a couple examples for you to kind of like play around with. So now I want to talk about how to use AI to prepare. So I've helped a lot of founders and agencies with pitches in my career. So I know firsthand really just how much of what breaks or what can break a pitch before you ever really walk into that room. Most of the time, preparation is the actual competitive advantage, not the actual pitch itself. And AI is a great use case for that. Investor pitches are one of the highest leverage places to use AI, and you want to use it to research an investor's thesis, their portfolio, their recent deals, so your pitch feels tailored, authentic, and not generic. The amount of pitches these people see are endless practically. So if there's a way that you can use AI to help make your pitch more tailored to their goals and what they value, you're going to see a much better rate of acceptance. So use it to anticipate the hard questions on financials, TAM, which is total addressable market, pretty much your entire market, and competition, so you're just not caught off guard. And then have it help you refine your narrative arc and key sound bites. You can generate a list of likely objections so you can rehearse confidently and have the specific answers to those questions ready to go. At the end of the day, AI is not going to close your round, but it is going to help you show up ready. A few stats on the side here, just by the numbers, almost 58% of all VCs in early 2025, which was actually just Q1, went to AI startups. So competition really is fierce in this world. 30 seconds is all it really takes for investors to also form a first impression, industry standard number that we're all probably seeing across the board. And then also 30% success rate for founders with strong pitch preparation. So you're going to have a lot better of a success rate if you are really coming prepared and using AI for those objection testing of everything.
So I'm going to pause here a second because we'll send a copy of this presentation with prompts that folks can ask, whichever AI tool that they use. But one of the things that Rachel really touched upon, and I've seen this happen when I work with founders, regardless of whether or not they're pitching to investors or whether or not they're even trying to go to market, it is how well do you really know your market? How well do you really know what you're presenting and what you're asking for, right? Really narrowing down the specifics of, well, this is exactly what I need, why I need it, right? And being able to really understand some of the questions that they might ask and being prepared, right? Or any AI tool that you can use it to, like Rachel said, as your devil's advocate, to challenge you, right? It'll probably ask you questions based off of the information obviously it has on hand, but it is a great stepping stone to like having those conversations and being prepared to have those tough conversations so that you know what might be something that you might need to be prepared for when you walk into some of these conversations and these rooms.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you. We're kind of piggybacking off of what you just said here, Jasmine. Partner meetings are also often underestimated here. A lot of founders go in asking themselves, what are those founders' goals? This is where being prepared and doing your research really is amplified. side. You can use AI to really help map what the partner actually cares about, what their constraints are, how to frame value for them specifically, instead of just a generic approach like, this is me and this is what I do and this is what I made. You want to offer them insight into how and what you're doing is going to support what they actually care about. So this is really where that value is going to lie in their eyes. So just kind of like piggybacking off what Jasmeet said there, making it so doing the research and understanding who your market is and showing them that you've done your research is going to, amplify this across the board for them. And then lastly, have AI also help you anticipate objections and draft those talking points. So that prep work that you used that really used to just take days, now really only can take you a few hours, right? Really, obviously, of course, you want to rehearse then and understand, you make sure that you fully grasp everything. But at the end of the day, like this can really be your assistant and help you across the board. I just wanted to review a couple things here, just pinpoint. So it's less than 3 minutes for AI to produce these first draft partner briefs. So that's what I was kind of getting at there a little bit about. It can really just take an hour or two to get you what you need in order to then prepare. And then also 73% of organizations worldwide are actually using AI now. So don't shy away from it. You can really lean into it. It's a great tool in certain aspects. And then also lastly here, 2x speed advantage when founders show up what they've researched. So you can make sure that these meetings are tailored and specific to what you want the meeting to be and how you want the meeting to go. So you can really come in confident and make sure that the meeting is going or discussing in those meetings exactly what you want it to be used for. Legal discussions are where founders are most often caught off guard or potentially pretty much overpay simply because they didn't come prepared. So if any of you were here for last month's webinar, Jasmeet had Eugene come in, who's a lawyer for you guys pretty much, and he spoke in depth about when and how to use AI for legal prep. If you didn't listen to that one, I highly recommend going back and reviewing it. I'm sure Jasmeet can send that to you if you're interested. There are some really great insights in there for y'all. I did want to just highlight kind of high level here because it does play into marketing and how to prepare and how to use AI for that strategic advantage. So you can use AI to help you understand term sheet language, English, layman's terms before you walk into that meeting. You can use it to generate smart questions for your attorney, so you're spending less time on legal fees and more time on judgment, not just the explanations. And then it can help you identify which clauses matter most at your stage, such as equity, IP, non-competes, anything along those lines, and help you flag any of those red flags in NDAs or contractor agreements before they become problems. So how does this all connect to marketing and strategy? This slide is, as I said, super high level when it comes to AI for legal work, but important in terms of preparation for setting yourself up for success. So when it comes to time for pitches, you're going to have those answers in your back pocket in case investors are asking you any of these legal questions, about equity, about IP and stuff along those lines. Just a highlight here, it takes 3.1 hours on average for legal teams to spend reviewing a single contract manually. If you can come in before, have your questions ready, instead of them wasting time on explanation and reviewing the document and stuff along those lines, your money is going to go towards actual judgment, the explanation, and them sitting there reviewing what it is, right? Coming prepared at the end of the day.
Thank you. I just want to pause here. So if anyone is interested in the webinar that we hosted last month with NanoGC, Eugene led that. They are a stellar startup lawyer. They work with SMBs as well. Reach out to us. We're happy to send you a copy. It was amazing. The webinar, it's also up on our YouTube. And along with that, you'll get a playbook of prompts that you can use to help you set up for success and minimize some of that legal costs. Back to you. Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, definitely. And honestly, I got 95% of that slide's content from that whole webinar. So I highly recommend if you're kind of coming into those times of thinking about when legal needs to be applied, highly recommend going back and reviewing. Anywho, last but not least, AI can be used for so many other things, so this is not last, but last in my 4 of these things. Customer discovery is really one of the most important things you're going to do as an early stage founder. And it's also one of the easiest to go wrong. So AI can really help you design these unbiased interview questions that are going to surface real pain points instead of confirming what you pretty much already believe. Someone said it, I think Alexander, you said it before, don't assume. We all know what happens when we assume. So if you can help, it can help you like analyze patterns across multiple conversations and extract really what actually matters, those insights, those data points. So you're making like product and positioning decisions based on signal, not your gut. I know Jasmeet has run like surveys and stuff along those lines. So like if you have like lots of information, lots of surveys, lots of data points from your market, your population, stuff along those lines, it can help synthesize a lot of that for you and help you understand kind of where your market's at and how to position yourself without like you went like line by line. So yeah, synthesization, is that a word? Synthesizing at the end of the day. And just a few like data points here. Seed stage AI startups command higher valuations. So customer fit really matters when you're kind of like in that bootstrap or seed stage more than anything. And then also 95% of enterprise AI pilots stall without measurable benefits from unclear problem definition. So if you're putting together like an AI pilot or something along those lines, it's even if you're utilizing AI in any form of your product or service, you want to make sure that you really understand your positioning problem, because that's really where a lot of that issue is going to be at stake. I think some of you might be using AI. Great. So how to use AI to help you make those decisions. Moving on down here. Okay. So pressure testing is really the key here. We have a few examples and I'm going to kind of go into each of these. On the left here, you have kind of like the example, and then on the right side is kind of how you're going to do it. You can have it help you tell you what your core value proposition is. A note here, not writing it. You should already have something written by an actual person, but ask AI to poke holes in it. So share your current positioning and ask it to find the flaws, the assumptions, the places where a skeptical investor or like a competitor founder would potentially push back. That's where those gaps are going to live. So that's kind of how you can use it for your core value. When it comes to messaging clarity, again, not coming up with the messaging, but making sure that the messaging is jargon free and accessible to all by asking AI to kind of like argue against your messaging. So have it play like a skeptical customer or a Series A investor or an angel investor who's heard pretty much hundreds of pitches like yours. Is it jargon heavy? Is the differentiation actually like clear? Trust me, you're gonna find out fast what's working and how you can actually redirect then if something is not.
Can I pause once again? Because I want to talk a little bit about first thing you said, your core value proposition. Can you just briefly explain what is defined as core value proposition and why folks might want to actually think about this at the beginning?
Yeah, definitely. So your core value proposition is something that kind of like make sure that you're tailored for who and what it is that you're doing. So who's your market and really what it is that you do for them. You can kind of think about it as like a value proposition, but it's like the value, it can be, at different stages. It could be at your campaign level. It could be at a product level. Your core value proposition is what it is that you're doing and like for the business at the end of the day. So it's hyper personalized, it's local, it's accurate, it's actionable as well. And you should be able to read like this one-liner and understand exactly what it is that you're doing.
So to give folks an example, what would be your core value proposition?
My core value proposition, I actually said at the very beginning, is connecting your overarching business goals with your marketing plan. So it is kind of like it's an action of what I'm doing. It's you understand exactly what it is that you can kind of think about it as like an elevator pitch to an extent, but like rather than like a 30-second one, it's like a one-liner one, almost like a tagline, if you will.
So is this when you say how to do it, would you take your elevator pitch, then what would you ask AI for it? You would ask it to poke holes, you would ask for it to
yeah, definitely. Yeah. So the one thing which I'm going to get into in a minute is you want to give AI context. And when you give it context, that's when the value is really going to start to spit out what it is that you want and need. So if you start to like say like I think when I was actually, just a little anecdote here, earlier this year I was going to a marketing conference and in Palm Springs, and I was trying to figure out like what is like, how do I want to like pitch myself in like the 1 second, not the 30-second pitch, but like what is it at my core that I do? For those of you who have worked in the contractor space, I started contracting 2.5 years ago, but as I mentioned, been in the industry for 10. And when I started contracting though, I was like, what do I was just taking anything, right? I was doing like organic posts for a chemistry client. Like I was like, that's not what I do. That's not where my real value is, but money is money, right? Kind of thing. So I was using AI to be like, what is this, what is chem theory or whatever along these lines, right? So anyway, what I'm trying to get at though is that on my way to that conference, how can people understand what it is that I do and what is like my core value to them, right? And that's kind of when I was like, I used AI, I actually used Claude. I actually had I was driving, my friend was in the passenger, and I was like, write this in for me, and I had AI kind of help clarify exactly what it is. And since then I've been using that phrase of, I help you connect your overarching business goals with your marketing plan. And there's a differentiator in that as well, because not all strategists do that specifically. I sit in between this world of business strategy, creative strategy, content strategy, brand strategy, and performance strategy, that I'm thankful enough to have had that experience. And so I added all that context into AI and was like, this is where I come from and this is what I'm kind of doing. How do I, clarify that to my audience and to get new clients and stuff along those lines? So just kind of like how I kind of went about it, and giving that context and writing that in can help guide you.
Amazing. Thank you.
So we left off at your go-to-market approach. So it can actually help meet the market need of what you actually think it does, right? So does it actually meet that market need? This opportunity where requesting 3 alternatives framings is really useful. So you can ask AI why each one might land better than what you actually have. What I've seen usually happen consistently is that founders end up somewhere in the middle, what you actually have. So you can take the sharper pain point from one, the cleaner differentiator maybe from another, a phrase from the third, and your original positioning ends up much stronger than any of the alternatives, than your own, and than what you originally had. So those 3 alternatives and kind of like why those are better can help you kind of like land in the middle a little bit and make sure like what you actually had is actually the best opportunity, is the best to hit on all the needs, all your needs. Cool. So if you're curious about testing into a new channel or a platform, this is more on like the advertising side. So these are, if you're a little further along, obviously, if you're not still just like if you're not just bootstrapped and you're actually trying to not just get investor money, but also actually trying to advertise yourself, bring awareness to your product or service, you can ask AI to help, test a new channel or a platform and help guide you, I should say, not actually test it. You can have it profile your target audience and map them to the platforms that they most likely are going to be on. You don't want to ever guess on this. For example, if your product or service is trying to go after like young boys, you probably don't want to be on Instagram. And you probably want to be on YouTube. And you can ask it though, I'm thinking about going on YouTube. Is this the right place? How do I go about this on YouTube? Where on YouTube? Is it an ad? Is it a banner ad at the bottom? Do I put organic content out there? How do I get them? So you can have it help guide you onto the right platform and right channel. Again, I want to note here though that depending on what stage you're in terms of actually pushing things live, I'd advise you to bring on a media consultant when it comes to actually like starting to execute on all of this. But it can help start to like guide, like where do you want to focus your marketing plans a little bit. And then also for budget assumptions here, asking AI to stress test numbers and surface any hidden costs or trade-offs. If you go with one idea or another, for example, are there hidden costs you hadn't considered? Are there trade-offs that you might have down the road that you might not have seen right away as you start off? So I'm just really utilizing it to help plug or make sure that the direction that you go in, the costs. And then my favorite, Ask it about risk assumptions and breaking down your plan. One of my favorite things to do is run a pre-mortem. Has anyone ever heard of a pre-mortem? Not a pre-mortem. Can you let me know if you guys have, like, yes or no? This is like one of my favorite things to do. I don't know if you guys know this, but AI can actually tell the future. No, I'm just joking. This is one of my favorite things to do. Well, obviously it can't actually tell the future, but it's kind of like my fun way of saying what it can actually do. What you're going to want to do is ask AI to run this pre-mortem. You're going to start by giving it as much context as possible about like kind of like what you're working on, whether that's your business, a marketing campaign, a product launch, really any initiative at the end of the day. And you're going to include it, as many details. Your goals, your KPIs, your target audience, the marketing plan, the timeline, the budget, the strategy, anything and everything you can to provide it better. If you have a website, just copy and paste the link to the website in there. The more context, the more useful this output is going to be. And then at the end of the prompt, you're going to add in something along the lines of, assume the business, campaign, or project, or whatever it is that you described above failed 6 months from now. Explain in detail why it failed. Obviously, you can change that time frame to whatever it is, 3 months, a year, several years, depending on your situation, whatever really fits your stage. And what these AI systems are going to do is identify potential weaknesses, blind spots, risks, assumptions that could cause things to fail. So often it's going to surface gaps that you hadn't necessarily considered, giving you the opportunity to address them before significant time or resources were put into that. This approach also isn't limited to business only either. You can use it for you can use this exact same exercise for like personal decisions. For example, if you're considering buying a new house, moving to a new city, changing careers, pursuing a major goal, looking to get pregnant, providing this real context and like asking the AI to really assume the decision did not work out, then have it explain what went wrong. Obviously, this value isn't the future. It's uncovering those potential obstacles early on so you can really plan for them and reduce the likelihood of really any of those issues becoming real problems. So if it says, this failed 6 months from now because, you were never able to actually reach your target market because, the positioning of the message was irrelevant to them. Well, there you go. You can revisit your messaging and be like, how do I actually like target this audience with the right message? Going back to that example about boys on YouTube or something like that, like if you're putting together like a gaming platform or something like that, right? How do you act? What is that message and like what is that value that you're bringing to them? So you can revisit all of that for you. One thing I just want to note about that is that's actually the signal. This is actually the signal for also when to bring in a professional. So when AI keeps like resurfacing these same gaps and you don't know how to close them, that's not necessarily just a prompting problem anymore, but that's a strategy problem. So when your positioning still isn't clicking after multiple iterations of this, when you're about to like make a big bet that's going to cost potentially real money, and you really need someone who's going to be there to push back and not agree with everything and not be the yes man that we all know AI can be, that's when you stop stress testing and start bringing in someone who can really own the outcome with you. I just spoke a lot for that one. I just want to make sure I'm happy to like pause here for a split second. Are there any questions about this in particular? I did see a question come through, but we were holding off for a second. If it's about this, I'm happy to answer it. If not, let's hold off until the end. Okay, so as I noted, when is AI not the answer? Moving on down. While we have many use cases for AI, as we can tell, unfortunately, it does fall short in some cases. It's a great tool, but it really cannot replace actual strategic thinking. So it doesn't know your market dynamics, your specific competitive landscape, the nuanced behaviors of your customers. You really have to give it that context. It also has no accountability. So you need to be accountable for it, and it's not going to push back when you're wrong. It usually agrees with you. Sometimes I kind of love it when it's like, good job, Rachel, you're so smart, something along those lines. But of course, you want it to also be a little bit of a pushbacker if you can. You all know that typically praises you and stuff. If any of you are interested out of curiosity about how to turn off that praising, there is a way to do that on Claude. So feel free to reach out to me and I can kind of give you the tidbit there. But there is a way to turn that off. But I kind of have it on because I kind of like it. But anyway, so it takes really at the end of the day, it takes like a strategic partner who actually cares about the outcomes to challenge your plans. Okay, so it's also great at pattern matching. We kind of talked about this a little bit above, but it's not good at strategy. So it can synthesize lots of existing data to pull out patterns and insights, but it really cannot craft like this truly differentiated strategy for your specific position. And then lastly, whatever you put in is what is going to come out. So garbage out. And AI is going to amplify what you give it. If you give it a vague brief, you're going to get a vague output. So you want to make sure what you're putting into that brief is clear and expansive. And when I say expansive, I mean like lots of context. On this slide is here, on this next slide here, we're going to get into a couple prompts about vague briefs for more of a visual for you here. So what we've talked about a bit about positioning and angles already, so you can use this as an example. We'll use this one as an example. A bad prompt gives AI almost nothing to work with. Help me with my startup positioning. That could really mean anything. I feel like none of you all would ever say like, help me with my startup positioning, but like even if you just give it a little context, help me with my startup positioning about my gaming company who's trying to, market to, teenage boys, whatever that is. It still is like not enough, right? So a good prompt is going to give it a lot more than that. And some of these things you might even be a little bit shocked at what you need to give it. You want to give it your stage as well. Where are you within all of this? Are you bootstrapped? Are you Series A? Are you a small business now? Anything along those lines. So give it your stage of your business. Your ICP, of course. Give it your competitors. It can really help guide. If you give it your competitors, it can help guide like where you are within the field of the competition. Your differentiator as well. How do you differentiate to your competitors? And also a specific ask. So the more context you give it, the more useful what comes back is going to be. You can think of it as like kind of like briefing like a smart contractor. They can only work with what you hand them. So here's a good brief. I'm building a B2B SaaS tool for mid-market HR teams that automates onboarding. My top competitors are Workday and Bamboo HR. I'm differentiating on speed to deploy and SMB pricing. Poke holes in this positioning and give me 3 stronger alternatives. This is like a great prompt to kind of like start guiding you about what we talked about before about the 3 stronger alternatives. A lot of the times you can kind of end up in the middle and take aspects from each of those. For example, say your original positioning was affordable help HR software for growing teams. AI comes back with these 3 alternatives. Maybe one leans into speed, one leans into the pain of bad onboarding experiencing, and then one leans into maybe like the cost of employee turnover or something along those lines. None of them are exactly right, but now you can really pull those aspects about, and then that you want to hit on, maybe like fast, friction-free, and retention into your final version. So that's like a much stronger position than where you actually started. Another example here is when you're preparing for investor meetings. A bad no context prompt is something like, what questions are investors going to ask me? Again, I think you guys would provide more context than that, but again, more context is key. So you can say something like, I'm pitching a Series A for a climate fintech startup. We're pre-revenue with 1.2 million in committed LOIs, which is letters of intent if you aren't sure. My investor is a partner of Congruent Ventures, focused on climate infrastructure. What are the 10 hardest questions they're going to ask, and how should I answer each of them? So in these aspects, and then under the investor prep side of things, that's when you want to like take the time to like rehearse. Okay, cool. The cost of waiting too long. When do you actually bring in that strategic support? When is that right time? The answer is anytime you're starting something new. That's a kind of a way to like kind of level it up, if you will. For like a company, for like startups. But if you're also, established, you want to bring someone on for like a strategic support for maybe like a new product line, a campaign, a go-to-market push. Any inflection point really is that right time. These larger companies have strategic support constantly, of course, because they're always pushing something live and there's an always inflection point. But for you guys at the smaller startup phases, at the very beginning is one time, but as well as, right before launch and stuff along those lines. A lot of the times contractors like myself can work in a project basis. So like coming in, putting down a foundation and then backing away, stuff along those lines. So the second cost is spend. Where are you putting your hard-earned dollars? If you wait too long, it can actually be quite inefficient. So this one is painful sometimes because if you already move ahead ahead, and that means the money is already gone, but you can always revisit. But what happens is founders start running ads, launching campaigns, hiring for execution. They get all excited because like they're thinking this is like a really exciting time. But if you don't have the message, the audience, the channel strategy, if those are unclear, you end up optimizing on tactics that are sitting on like this broken foundation. You can always, of course, like make your ads better, the emails tighter, the funnel cleaner, but the core positioning is off. None of that is really going to move the needle the way it really should. So you kind of need a little bit of an overhaul. This is where strategic support from someone like Jasmeet also is exceptionally helpful as well. Not just marketing strategy, but also logistical strategy, like what she does. So making sure you have everything thought through. So as a customer comes in your door, they stay there and are led to the right places to actually convert. That's kind of what I was mentioning. We're happy to have usually conversations about like when is the right time to bring on someone like Jasmeet or myself. We usually offer like free consultations. So like be like, do you actually need logistical support? Do you actually need strategy at this time? Or like, is it actually you need like a CTO or something like that? And so we're usually happy to have these conversations and just understand like when to bring on that support so you don't inefficiently spend.
One thing I'll say, you're going to get to it, but one thing I will say is just because you have a product or you've built something, which amazing, right? Doesn't mean that you have solved everything that you need to be able to go to market or acquire users or customers or clients or even make money. So I think that it's all in line with, just making sure if you're able to have some of these conversations in the beginning, you'll be able to aid some of the misaligned positioning, the inefficient spend, and I think Rachel's going to get to it, which is the rework. So I'll let Rachel kind of talk about that.
Awesome. That's exactly right, Jasmeet. Excellent. This aspect is about rework. So delaying almost always costs more in the long run. Without strategic alignment early on, teams will work in silos. So if you do have a small team under you, I've seen it time and time again. Messaging ends up not connecting. You lose potential customers along the way. You end up having to rebuild. All that rework, lost momentum, wasted spend can really be avoided by investing in strategy earlier than actually feels necessary. The thing I always say is strategic support early isn't a cost. It's an investment that does compound. So this next slide is just like a visual of kind of all what I just went over. Just of kind of like what delaying might actually look like. When we start out with no strategy and an unclear message, it can lead to like missed ROI, which will then cause rework, your spend compounds, and then eventually down the line after reinvestment into strategy to align, you'll hopefully get your outcome, but at the cost of like much slower traction and wasted spend. But if you bring on strategy earlier, you have made an investment that is going to compound over time, driving faster traction. You're going to be ahead of your competitors and spend less money in the long run. Rounding out here, I wanted to make sure you guys left with a framework to use on this next slide. You want to let AI handle the research, the drafts, the objection anticipation, the stress testing, but you want to keep the vision, the positioning calls, the key relationships, and the accountability in your hands or with a strategic partner. That's really the balance there. And the one thing I just want to be clear about what is a strategic partner and like what that actually means. So it's not just someone who helps you think. It's someone who's done this before, who knows where founders typically get it wrong, who will tell you kind of like the hard thing when AI is just going to, be your yes man, agree with you. If you're at an inflection point, raising, launching, repositioning, scaling, that's when a professional really is going to pay for itself. Not because you can't use AI to get 80% of the way there. But that last 20%, is the judgment, the calls, the market intuition, the accountability, the marketing prowess. That's where the real risk lies. And that's where a human really needs to be in the room. So just so you understand kind of like what strategic support really actually means. And then lastly here, just some key takeaways of what we just went over. To summarize what, we just spoke about, AI is you can use it to think, prepare, and help you operate. Use AI to prepare for these high stakes conversations. Use it to help you research, anticipate, and sharpen, your responses. Pressure test before you execute. Stress test your positioning, your go-to-market, your messaging, all of that before you actually go to market with all of it. AI does not replace judgment. Human strategy does still matter. And then lastly, bringing on strategic support early is going to, is going to save you money in the long run. So yeah, this last slide here is just, I hope you're ready to kind of like build smarter, use AI in the right ways to help get you there. If you do have any questions for me, I'm happy to connect with you. Feel free to like use this QR code.